Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tanya Talks. I'm your host, Tanya Ricketts, joined by my co-host, Teresa Simpatico. Welcome.
Thanks, Tanya. Nice to be here again.
Yes. So I just got to tell our audience, I just had to do an inventory of all the shows that we've done to date. So thank you all for listening in, and congratulations to Teresa that has done over 10 episodes on Tanya Talks. So again, I feel very comfortable calling you my co-host.
That's so kind of you. I really enjoy being here every time and love our conversations. So just really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So tonight we are going to continue on our many deep talks on the power of words. And I'm going to let you open up and just share with our audience what that looks like, what that means, how that affects our lives, what we can do to improve the language that we use every day.
Yeah, I love this topic. And, the reason is for me, it's twofold, right? We have on one hand, the words that we use for others, right? How do we encourage other people, our children, our friends, our family, strangers? It's really important to recognize that we also have this extreme power just by using words, what we can do for another human being.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one part that we can get into. The other part, obviously, is the words that we tell ourselves, the stories, the words, how we keep telling ourselves over and over again because of past trauma or stories that people told us, or, the identity that people have given us. And that's really important, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And by changing that narrative and using words, we can do that. So that's where I want to start. I think I really, really want to talk about how we can use those words to encourage other people. I mean, when's the last time you took some time out, or I took some time out to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, I love you, or you're beautiful, or I saw your post and it's wonderful. I think that if we did that more often, that we would recognize that we're actually helping people, we're encouraging them, we're bringing them to, this, wow, somebody's thinking about me, or, do they really feel that way about me? And that's really important. I think that we have that power and we should use that power.
Absolutely. I like the way you said it, like, to help somebody heal, because I think oftentimes we are so used to hearing in societies constructive criticism, feedback, and it always comes in a way that, yes, we take the constructive feedback and the constructive criticism. Even the word criticism is a negative word. It can be very damaging to an individual, and we're not necessarily going to express vocalizing that it's damaging to us in the moment. Not everybody's got the courage to say that I don't like that. So you are right that we have, I almost feel like a little bit of an obligation, not a responsibility, not even an obligation, a responsibility to be intentional with the way we use our words with others.
Absolutely. When you talk about criticism, though, I think it's the complete opposite of what I'm thinking. And that's what you're going for there. I think that's what I understood, is that we have to really be responsible in how we choose those words. I always tell our kids, once you use those words or choose your words or say those words, you cannot take them back.
Right.
Right. So that's the other thing. If you're having a heated argument with someone or you're talking, it's how you choose to use those words that can negatively impact the conversation or positively impact that conversation. So yes, there's the complimentary side of it where you can, reach out to someone, even a stranger. You see someone and you like their boots or their shoes and say, hey, I really like your shoes. They're fantastic. Where'd you get them? I know we don't do a lot of socializing right now, but, but yeah, so even to talk to strangers, or, how we talk to our children about how they're doing, is really powerful.
Right.
And yeah.
And when you talk about twofold, what comes to my mind when I hear twofold is the responsibility of how we're using our words towards others, but understanding that those words are coming from us. So it's actually telling a story of what we're feeling on the inside by the way we're using our words towards others. And when we can understand that, it becomes collective. Because while you're helping to build somebody up and maybe possibly promote healing in somebody else, you're also in turn doing it to yourself.
Well, absolutely. So I think it really starts within us, right? I
Yes.
mean, that's the really important part. We have so many opportunities in our life to change our narrative. And it's simple. Like I can tell you, and we've talked about this in probably one of the shows that we've done, but it's simple, a simple thing. Like I remember being told that I got 10 out of 10 on a test and I should have got 11 out of 10. And so the rest of my life, and I know it wasn't probably meant in a negative way. I don't know if it was, done as a joke. It didn't really matter. It was my interpretation and my perception of what was said to me as an 11-year-old girl, and what I thought was, oh, so I have to always be better than perfect. And I swear to you, that lived with me my whole life, and I'll never forget it. And it took me a long time to realize that I didn't have to be better than perfect, that I'm already perfectly imperfect. But I didn't know that. And that really, really impacted me. Sometimes it's one thing that somebody said that impacts us for the rest of our lives, that creates this trauma based, narrative in our minds. That's one of the many things that I can come up with. But just how critical that talk is when you're talking to other people. That was somebody else who said that to me. But then I carried that through in my own life.
And picked up on that language. And I always say to people, if you hang out with, and I've witnessed this with my own self, where all of a sudden I hang out with a new set of people, and all of a sudden I become that language.
Yeah.
So it's so important to understand the people around you, because you become that language.
Absolutely. But some of it, like when we're children, we don't control for the most part. We do partially because we have friends, but the other surroundings in our environment, we don't control. We are limited in our control of that. So it's really important. Like as a mother, as a parent, sometimes I've said the wrong thing. So, and I recognize that I've said the wrong thing and how that might impact our children. So I will go back and say, oh my goodness, I'm really sorry. That's not how I meant it. I know how it sounds, because I know the lifelong impact of some of the words that were given to me. There was no apology. It wasn't one of those things. It was just, they said what they felt or whatever they wanted. This different generation. But I think about my words, and when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Or when I feel like I've said something that didn't come out the right way, for example, I will go back and say, hey, I'm really sorry. That's not what I meant. And that's not how I want you to feel. So I think that's really important. That also shows the individual that people can make mistakes. Words sometimes are the wrong words, but we can change those words to make them better. And that's what we need to tell ourselves. So for long periods of time in my life, there was a very same narrative. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not perfect enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not all these things, right?
I'm not enough.
I'm just not enough. And really, no, for a long time, that was my narrative.
Right.
Up until recently, even, going through, when I started doing meditation and going on more of a spiritual journey in my life, it took me a while even to get to those words where I would say, I am enough. I wore a ring that said, I am enough, so that I could, when I felt like I wasn't enough, right, I would look down and say, I am enough.
Right.
Because it still lived with me. It was one of the hardest things for me to break. I couldn't let loose of those words, 4 words, I am not enough. But, it was just the not I had to get rid of. That's it.
Right.
And change the narrative. I found as I repeated something and repeated this to myself that I eventually really believed I am enough. And I know I am enough. Like I really feel that in my core. But for a long time, I didn't. And there was several reasons for that. My mother leaving, the abuse, words that were said to me, things that people said to me. That's what I lived with for the early part of my life. And that's what I knew.
Right.
So that's how important it is. And if you find trouble, so this is really important. I think this is really neat. So, okay, even if you don't believe the words, right? Like at times I did not believe I am enough, but I said it to myself and I made sure that I always changed the narrative. Because I think when you feed your mind, your body, your soul, the same thing over and over and over, it's just like food, right? It's food for the mind, it's food for the heart, it's food for the soul. Words are that. And so if you say it enough, eventually you start to believe it. You start to say, yeah, I really am enough, and you can look back at things, and it takes a lot of healing and work, and it's sometimes not that simple, right? But the more I said it, the more I started to believe it. So even leaving little notes, sticky notes, like a sticky note challenge, and put a positive affirmation, something that you fight with. It could be that you don't feel that you're pretty enough or whatever it is, right? I am beautiful. We're all beautiful. Like, humans are amazing. Number one, we're all beautiful. We're unique. We all bring something to this life. We all bring something to one another. We don't even realize how we affect each other, right? We don't think about those things. Like, even smiling at someone, really, like, you've probably made their day. Do we, like, if you
opening
think
you
about,
up, right?
Right. How many people we've affected in our lives, not always positively, of course, and I think we know that. But I think the more that we practice, uh, doing those things and being positive in somebody's life is amazing. And you can do that with words or text. I mean, words are words, right? So yeah, I know I've gone from one to another, but they really do intertwine, right? Because when you really feel good about yourself, you can use those words with other people. And that's what you're saying. It's really hard to give that back or give that out when you don't feel that yourself.
Right. Absolutely. I'm going to touch a little bit about the affirmations where you say sometimes you don't believe it. We had a show last night, and we become what we believe. And words, I think it was just such a beautiful segue into this topic, because what we have to understand, there's the science. I know you and I, Teresa, we talk about the quantum and the science behind things. Our brains are neuroplastic, and you feed it different information. Even if you don't feel it initially, if you continue to feed it different information, it eventually gets to your heart. And eventually when it gets to your heart, and it has, as Joe Dispenza talks about, it has the brain emotional coherence to it.
Heart coherence.
And then all of a sudden it amplifies.
Yeah.
So I like the way that you're really encouraging us to use our work, to continue using the affirmations until our brain absorbs and starts to fire off different neurons. So even if we come from trauma or anything as such, the affirmations eventually over time will start to change things. And when you reinforce it with Post-it notes, when you reinforce it with mirror work, when you reinforce it with journaling, all those things help to change the information that's going into our brain. And it starts to give us an opportunity to change the emotional state of what we come from, to change the chemical state within.
Well, let's talk about frequencies too, right? I mean, that it all goes hand in hand, and the elevated emotions. That's what we're looking for, elevated emotions. And when you're feeling like you're not enough, and I can equate that with sort of like depression or shame or fear, or all these things at the bottom. Like, you don't feel good, you just don't.
Right.
But when you feel like you are enough, and it causes this contentment in you, right? This happiness, that's a really high elevated emotion. And joy, like, just to be joyful and accepting of who you are. That's the thing, that we don't accept who we are because of the stories people told us, because that's how it starts. And then we keep telling ourselves those stories because we know that, and we're comfortable there, right? Because that's what we know. And if we don't get out of that narrative, we're always going to be in that pit, in that not feeling so great. I'm not saying that you don't have good times in that as well. You do. But do you ever really feel good about yourself? Do you ever really feel that joy? I don't know. Maybe some do, and maybe some are okay being there. But I can tell you that I know that I wasn't. And for a good part of my life, I was not in a good place. Simple. I felt joy. Don't get me wrong. I birthed my daughter, and
and I think what you're saying is that deep connection. So what we talk about is that deep connection to that feeling of joy, where we talk about layers and levels, and it's like ascending to that real place of joy where we feel joy at the level 1 joy. So let's just put it out there. In terms of comprehension, it's like you feel joy, but it's on a scale of 1 to 10. It may feel like a 1. You feel joy, you move into the level 2. Were you at a 10 out of 10? Maybe not. Were you at 11 out of 10? Maybe not. But you felt joy.
Never 11 out of 10.
That what? Sorry?
Never 11 out of 10.
So, you feel that. I want to touch upon this piece of it, because I feel like we're going to cover a lot in this conversation when it comes to words. And I know more recently we've been diving into a lot more of the frequencies and the vibrations of how we use words and understanding that the words are coming from us. And talk to us a little bit about how, like, I found that different words trigger different people. And we can say the word blue, and blue to Teresa means something different to Tanya. And it changes the cell structure within our bodies because of what it triggers. And why it's so important to not judge people for the way they're using their words or how they're triggered by words, because it represents something different to each and every one of us.
Number one, we should never judge people for
Right.
who they are, how they are, because we don't know their story. And if we do know their story, we should be empathetic and compassionate. We all have a story. Every single one of us. You know, I've never had a conversation with one person that could tell me that something didn't happen in their life, that they didn't have a story. Everybody has a story. We're here, we're living human, and we're living a human experience, and we all have stories. So to judge people because they think, you know, if you say blue and I say blue, I mean, I get what you're saying. They may be impacted much differently. But when you're using words like, I love you, or you are beautiful, you are amazing. I mean, those words cannot negatively impact people. You know, it's like being in gratitude almost. Those are such powerful words that those types of words are really hard to have a negative impact. I'm talking about those super words, almost like superfoods, right?
Right.
Right? That's what I'm talking about. Like using those things to talk to people. You're beautiful. You're an inspiration. You're kind. That was a very kind thing that you did. Like even to our children, like what do we say? How do we use those words to give them really important meaning, but without going over the top? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that when we're talking about other things, yeah, of course, like I'm not sure of a word that is so powerful that can negatively impact someone, but I mean, it's always possible, right? The one thing I can say is when you say to someone, I am beautiful, they're like, no, I'm not, you know?
People are so close to receiving. And it's, again, I say the most unselfish thing you can ever do is learn how to receive. And you don't realize how closed. I did an exercise with myself the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, am I still dealing with this? Am I still that close to receiving this? We really, we're really good at guarding ourselves from, and I think it's more the unknown. Like when somebody says that, it triggers the unknown. Like it shocks the body almost into that feeling of, I don't know what this feels like. It's foreign.
Is this real? Like they don't really think I'm beautiful, but why? And that's because it's a narrative we live with, right? That's something, that's a self-belief of for some reason that you have about yourself. And so it's really hard to understand how somebody can say that about you. And a lot of the times, especially women, beauty is on the outside, right? Like we are taught from young, you know, poster models and like all these things. And so we really have been negatively impacted by media and social media, our children, like, you know, and they're going to have even a harder time. We did too, you know, and I think that it's really important to understand that. So when someone says you're beautiful, often, I mean, I think that there's beauty in everybody, you know, and good and beauty in everybody, but ourselves, we have been living our whole lives thinking, well, this poster is what's beautiful. I'm not that, like, you know, so how can I be beautiful? But the one thing that we have to recognize is beauty is within, right? And yeah, so I think that's really important to recognize. So when we hold back, it's because, you know, we have this image of what beauty is, or if someone tells us we're smart, maybe we failed a test once and that really left us with an impact. And so we're like, oh, I'm not smart. Like I failed that test, and that's in your head still, or whatever the case may be.
It's funny,
right?
how we carry that emotion so deeply embedded, and how those words trigger, like, you know, you're so smart, and all of a sudden you're right. It takes you so far back into the past.
Yeah.
That like you're just in such a warp speed.
you're there.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
amazing how we remember all those negative things and how a lot of the positive things have left us, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
easy, it's harder to remember those positive things. But when
Mm-hmm.
someone does that, instantly your brain goes there right away. I find for myself, or I have, not so much anymore because I'm like, yeah, whatever, that was a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago, insignificant, and doesn't really mean anything,
Right,
anymore.
right.
And it's true, because it was 30 more 40 years ago when that happened or whatever it was, right? So really it's such an insignificant moment in time, but it's how has impacted us
Right.
and how we have carried through all these years with those same words over and over again, same narrative. But that's really important, and this is where we need to get to
Right.
as we go on in life. And we really have to find a way, whatever works for an individual. And I told you, I mean, I got a ring that said I am enough because it was the one thing that I still struggled with, right? I thought a lot of great things about myself, but why I just didn't feel like I was enough. Like I was good, but not enough. Not, it was just a really strange narrative that sat with me for so long. So I wore that ring until
And
I
that emotion
felt,
was so deeply embedded that,
yeah. And yes, it was until I came to terms with feeling like I am enough. And I took the ring off. I don't wear it anymore. But I wore it for a couple of years to keep reminding myself that I am enough. I am enough,
Mhm.
and I feel like I got there because of that. I got there because I kept telling myself that. And I really wanted to feel what that felt like. What does that feel like? Because why do I feel this way? And so I just kept using the same narrative and the same words, and they're very powerful. And I use them over and over, like I said, and I had something to remind me, which was really important, and it could just be, I mean, we all have phones. Put a message on your phone, right?
Mhm.
Instead of a picture, have a message. What is that you want to read every day? What do you want to feel inside of you? What do you want to
Mhm.
feel in your deepest part of your heart? Like, what do you really want to feel? What is the
Mhm.
thing that you want but you don't feel?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's one way that you can do it. We carry them all the time. We're on them all the time.
Right.
So have a message there. There's apps too that can send you
Well, when
positive
you think
affirmations.
about, well, when you talk about that and having words on your phones and messages on phones and surrounding yourself with post-it notes, it reminds me of a plant. So, when you do the emoto, I forget his first name, but I think, or his last name, emoto, messages of water, hidden messages of water. When we think about that, and if you're projecting words, even just in thought, negatively towards a plant, I hate you, and all the rest of that, what it does, the plant dies. There's no nourishment. As you talk about food, superfoods, super words, there's no nourishment. But if you talk about love and gratitude towards the plant, how the plant flourishes.
Yeah, we had
So,
this conversation during our quantum physics, talk. Yes, and they've done experiments, and you can see it. I mean, look it up. Look up plant experiments and talking to plants, and how powerful that experiment is. And
mhm,
you talk negatively to one and positively to another. One dies and one lives. So what does that show you? And that's
right,
a plant. We are talking about our own flesh, our own human flesh. If we constantly tell ourselves these negative, we constantly tell ourselves these negative things or have constant negative self-talk, what is your body doing?
right,
It's not, it's more stressed. It's not as relaxed. Your blood pressure is up, your heart rate is up, all of these things, right? But I feel like it's such an important thing to get past, or to get to, and to get
absolutely.
to a place where you're like, I feel great about myself. I am strong. Yes, I am strong. I can do this. I've got this, We can always change narrative on something, right? It's like the glass half full or the glass half empty. I know it's cliche, but I mean, it's true, right? Or
Right.
the glass is not either. It's full. How about it's full, right? It's perspective. And if you
I,
just change
no,
that,
go, absolutely.
right?
No, no, no. When you talk about change perspective, I remember when I woke up to the idea and I became awake to how powerful words are, hidden message of hidden messages of water and Moto and other books many books that I've studied in the power of words. and frequency and vibrations. And when I understood how it resonates in the tone and the sounds and the pitches of words, different languages, and how we project it. And when I understood what it was doing to my body, and if you're responding to I'm enough over and over again until you become it and you speak it into existence, I thought to myself, what am I really doing for the sake of myself and humanity? And I became more intentional. And I came up with this theory that we are using low frequency words, high frequency words, and master frequency words.
Oh, I like that.
And I thought to myself, when we're using low frequency words, and I started to experiment and do muscle testing on it, and I would stand still to, work on my vibrations and see what my body was actually doing, and testing the frequencies of the word. So when we're using words like can't, trying, need, hope, a lot of people say, I hope. And hope, your body starts, if you feel your body and become in tune with your body, it depresses. If you can't do something, it feels helpless. If you're trying to do something, you've made room, you've given yourself permission to
fail.
Absolutely. I didn't want to use the word fail, but yes.
Sorry, but that's true. No. If you're saying I'm trying, I get it. I love this. I love where you're going with
something and you need something, it's scarcity. So when I understood that those words, and you will catch me using them even on the show, I'm aware of it when I use it, and I think, oh gosh. And when you use those words, when I understood what it was doing to the cells, when I understood the frequency it was putting out, when I understood that it was leaving my life, my body, and everything else stuck, I wanted to contribute to something greater. So we go into this, high frequency words. So let me back up. The low frequency words typically are us living in the past of our traumas, our scarcities. It's living in the past.
Then can I just say one thing? Yeah. Not just living in your past, but we live in an environment, right? So yeah. Things happen, and it's stuff that even happens surrounding us in that moment, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So it's past, but it's also current, right? Because something can happen and say, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I can't do this, or
right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
So and we are also using, this is our conversation. This is what we do offline. We get excited. I also realized that we use a lot of negative words to describe positive experiences. If you stand still, like just stand straight, and when you feel your body going forward and backwards, and you say, I can't wait till Friday, your body's actually just in a still moment. It's also weakened if you do muscle testing. If you say, I look forward to going Friday, close your eyes and say, I look forward to Friday, your body actually propels forward. So what we want to do is start replacing our words and saying, I look forward to seeing you this weekend. I look forward to speaking to you. I look forward, and projecting that into the universe, projecting that into the world, and allowing yourself to move in the direction of what you look forward to. It's not to say that you're not going to get there. You are going to get there. Or when you're feeling sick, people say, I feel sick today. Well, your subconscious mind, the last thing it hears is sick, versus I'm not feeling well. The last thing your subconscious mind hears as well. So when I started to understand that we can take negative experiences and use positive words to move us into a healthier state faster, it became my mission.
I just read a post, someone posted something on Facebook, and replacing our words. And one of the examples was, I'm sorry I'm late. Instead, say, thank you for waiting for me.
Absolutely.
So just by switching that, it feels so much better and lighter, because stuff does happen and people are generally understanding. And I think people recognize that you're sorry that you're late. Like, I don't think it is something that needs to be said for the most part, but to say thank you for waiting for me sounds so much more high, like you feel like uplifted, and you know that when you're saying that to someone, that person feels better about waiting for you.
Yes, because you're grateful. But even you saying it in this moment for the audience, I want you to rewind it and feel Teresa as she says, thank you for waiting for me. Like, you feel good. Just like energetically, words carry a frequency. It carries a feeling. It carries an emotion. It carries a tone. And it's important that we understand how we're carrying that tone, how we're projecting that tone into the world, how we're carrying it and housing it in our bodies, the words that we're using and how we're projecting it. I think it is so important. This is an area of mine that I study. I love studying this area of words. That's why in 5 minutes I can tell what's going on in somebody's life just by listening to the words they're using. You know, I often hear people also using high frequency words. What does that look like? We're always using, I call it the ing words, where I'm going, it's happening, like it's always in the future, the ing. And the master words are in the present moment. I am. This is.
I am capable. I am smart. Right. I am beautiful. All the affirmations that we should be telling ourselves, because we really are.
Yeah, and absolute. I surrender. You're surrendering into the I am. It is. You know, this is.
Amazing. I love that. I love these. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off again because I think I've done it too many times tonight. I think it's such an amazing topic, right? And we talked about this, and we could like talk about this for hours, but I feel like it's such an important thing because I really believe it's the first way to change our vibration, right? It's the first way. If we can tell ourselves something over and over, if you tell someone something enough, they're going to believe you, right? And I think the most important person or people that we have to think about are ourselves. Like we have to tell ourselves that, right? And we can't look for other people to do that for us. However, that being said, because we have that power, we should be doing that. We should be telling people, you know, how we feel or bringing them up with positivity, with positive words, you know, not just with actions, but with words. Simple words go such a long way, you know? And so I think it's amazing what we can do just by changing words, by telling words, by saying words. It's amazing.
And I feel that when we start to focus on the more loving, healthier words, we tend to find that in others, where no matter who you meet in your life, your body naturally zeroes in on those wonderful qualities. Like, at least I'm speaking for myself, I can meet an individual and I can zero right in on their great qualities because I'm already in that space. A, I can see it in myself. B, you know, I take responsibility for how I'm using my words and what I'm contributing to. And all of a sudden, it makes whoever shows up in my reality, it gives me the opportunity to zero in on them being enough and their great self and and it's such a wonderful thing because it expands, as Joe calls it, the amplification. It amplifies into this universe, and they want to expand it in their universe, and that's how we create. It's almost like it's infectious, almost like this beautiful infectious. Let's build each other up and change the vibrations, the frequencies of our life and the world around us.
Yeah, let's think about something. Let's think about all the arguments we've ever had with somebody, right? Our spouses, our partners, our friends, our family. Think about all of those things, right? Now, how many times have we used narrative or words or anything in those conversations that we could have changed and it could have created a new reality in that relationship, right? Sometimes we lack telling, you know, the people closest to us how we feel about them and empowering them with our words, you know? And I find that when we do that, they feel empowered and it makes your relationship better. Like I can think of many times in the past. I mean, there's times that I'm not proud of. I've had arguments with people and I was like I think back and I was like, why did I do that? Why did I speak that way? Why did I use those words? We're all, I'm sure, you know, I'd love to hear from anyone if they can say they've never done that. Because I want to know how. I'm much better at it, but of course it's, you know, something that I work on. But I think about all those times and I'm like, wow, I could have changed the way that conversation went. There didn't have to be an argument. There didn't have to be upsetness and hatred or, you know, things that happened. And in most cases, I was able to take some of those words back and apologize, but not in all cases, right?
Absolutely. And when you're saying that, and how many arguments could we have avoided? I know on my journey of studying the power of words and how we use words and vibrations and frequencies and how we shift in that moment, because we've all been in those moments, whether you're at work with a friend, with a spouse, with your children, where you get into a heated argument. And what do we do as human natures? We're too busy defending ourselves, trying to plead our case, trying to do this, whatever we're in the middle of doing, and it's not working. And I remember understanding the concept of focusing on what you want. And, for my husband listening in, I remember one day just saying to him, you know what I actually really want? I don't want to be sitting here telling you all this stuff. Like, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. I want a hug.
Yeah.
And that was as simple as it was. That was what actually I wanted, but I couldn't get to, I want a hug. So I created an entire catastrophe around.
Right. But that's also part of our past, right?
Right.
I mean, how many times I wasn't really hugged as a kid. I just wasn't. I wasn't in that environment, that kind of environment.
Right.
I rarely had hugs as a kid.
Right.
When I was really, really little, I remember them, but as I grew older, they just weren't there.
And how many times do we use our words to create these catastrophes in our life? Mm-hmm. Versus just really being still. And you think in the moment when you're so heated that it can't happen and it's not possible, and it is. It is absolutely possible, where you just stop. And it's funny, you stop in mid-sentence because you catch yourself, and it almost throws the environment off, because it's like, what were you going to say? And it was just like, you know what I really want? This is what I want.
I don't want to fight.
Yeah, like
this fight? And it's not just wants to fight. It's like, you feel good.
I've been in business situations where it's like, we're bantering back and forth and we're not meeting eye to eye. And finally, it's just coming down to, you know what I want? And it's using my words to come out of the catastrophe by zeroing in on what really makes me happy or what I love to do, and being able to be free to express that and to share that and to communicate that and be free in that.
Yeah. I mean, I know I for a good part of my life, I lost my voice. Mm-hmm. And we, for many reasons, right? But I just didn't ever say how I felt or what I really meant, in fear of how I would be judged or looked at or shamed, or, I was not vulnerable enough in my life. To my detriment many times, of course, because I feel like I had a lot of failed relationships for that reason, not just with men, I'm talking in general, right? With friends, family in general. And I feel that, as I started changing how I talked to myself, about myself, how I felt about myself, all those things, and, recognizing that my past is literally my past, and that it's not what I want to live every day. I don't want to be there every day. And that's where I was. Every day I was in my past, from every perspective, right? We talk about this too, and we're just going to go off topic of words. It all, really,
it all comes together.
It all comes together. But, think about, like, we talk about this, like, we're always in our past. We're in our past traumas. And, I hate my ex because of this, and look at this. And, oh, wait, I have to do lunch and I have to do this. And we're always doing what we did yesterday. And there's no, like, creativity side. And we don't really have that time to give ourselves that powerful self-talk. And this is what I like meditation for, because you can do affirmation meditations, right? How do you start it? Well, very simply, come up with something that you want to meditate on. What is your affirmation? And if it is, I love myself, close your eyes. You can say it out loud or in your mind for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. Okay. Start small. Start even 30 seconds. Close your eyes and tell yourself in your mind or out loud, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And if you do that enough, just the words itself is going to change how your body is reacting and how your body feels. So that's really powerful, is doing an affirmation before meditation. Who am I? What do I want? How can I serve? But, using a mantra can be anything. It doesn't have to be fancy, like, some fancy Sanskrit mantra. It can just be, oh, and there's several which are beautiful. Do not get me wrong,
Yeah.
but you can use whatever you want in your meditation, you know. And like I said, it could be I am enough. And you sit there in your mind and over you say, I am enough. And as you have thoughts, you bring yourself back to your mantra. Yeah. So I think that's an amazing way to keep with your affirmation. And it's an amazing affirmation practice. I mean, that helped me tremendously because that's something that I did do.
Absolutely. And and as you say it, and you say, it's what I got from you in that moment was that feeling. And the minute you make that deeper connection to that feeling, somehow when you know yourself and you understand yourself more deeply, or get to understand yourself more deeply, it automatically changes the words that you're using.
Yeah.
And you become those affirmations that you're talking about, I love me. And all of a sudden it moves you to a higher vibration as you start to feel that. So in the beginning, for those of anybody that does affirmation work, we don't always believe it because we're not always connected to the feeling, and you keep at it until it starts to, connect to the heart. And as you start to feel that emotion a little bit more deeply, it moves you into the state of gratitude where you now thank yourself thank you for loving me. Mm-hmm. And that just changes, and you speak differently. You take care of yourself from a different space. You eat differently. There's just a lot of things you do from a different space.
Yeah.
Once we start to change and use words to change our realities, to speak things into existence, so to speak.
Yeah. You know what, Tanya, I think it's so important because I think it's really important that we talk about things that everybody can do, that you don't have to pay for. You don't have to pay for these things, right? And that's so important because there is this big, huge market on well-being, right?
Right.
And it's unaffordable, and it's unaffordable for most people. It's crazy. But what about the things that we can all do collectively as humankind? All of us. What can we do? Well, we have words, easy, right? We can meditate because it's free. We can use any mantra we want. We can do whatever we want, but it's really, I feel like it's so important to use the tools that we have. We don't really need, okay, don't get me wrong. So yes, I did all my courses. I'm a certified meditation instructor. I went to California to do it. I did it at the Chopra Center. I did several courses. Yes, I did. Do I feel like that was the thing that put me over the edge and said, oh, I believe in myself now? No. Because even though I did all those things, I still didn't believe it. I still, in my heart, I didn't feel it. So really the power is in ourselves. It really is.
It's making a deeper connection with the core of who you are.
Absolutely.
That allows you to feel it. And yeah, that takes work.
It takes work, but it's stuff that we have at our fingertips, our mouth, like at the tip of our tongue. We literally have it within us. Everybody can sit for 5 minutes a day and create their own mantra. And say it over and over, and everybody can do that, and everybody can change the narrative. If someone is feeling down on themselves because, I know that especially a certain time of the month I eat a lot and I'm like, oh my gosh, I ate so much food. Look at me now, and I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm beautiful. I'm great. And I change my own narrative because it's easy to get stuck there. Absolutely. Right? It's easy to go back to that. But as you practice it, it does get harder to go back to that because I like this elevated emotion that I'm in.
Yeah. Who wants to?
I like feeling good. Who wants to go back to that? I want to lock it in a closet with a lock key and let it try to push its way out. Because,
it's funny. People used to say to me, I never want to forget where I came from. And I thought, and I won't get into that topic because that it's a rabbit hole topic, and in a tennis match topic. Yeah. For me, I was like, I don't know why I want to remember all that. I want to touch upon words in our environment because I know for myself, when I started to really understand, so anybody that knows me knows that I have the spiritual side and the scientific side, and I like to marry the two and fuse them together. And when I really started to understand and take responsibility for the environment that I was creating and the reality around me, And I started to understand that the people around me, we were all using the same language, whether I was born into it or not. At some point as a grown-up, so we have to take responsibility for it. And I remember being in environments and I was like, it was like the words that I was now hearing, the same words. So nothing, I changed, not the environment, but the environment within me changed. I remember listening to the conversations around me and the words were hurting my ears. Because I was like, wow, this is what I sounded like.
Yeah.
And I found it very challenging, to exist now in an environment that reflected that. And
Yeah.
I certainly wanted to be respectful by not projecting or um, pushing my beliefs on anyone. How does one navigate through that?
Yeah. Uh, Great question. When you talk about that, all I could think about was gossip. Like, when you're in a group and people are gossiping, and that like, and we've all been culprits. I mean, I did it many years ago. I don't anymore because I don't feel a necessity to do that because of how I feel about people in general and how I feel about myself. I don't know, when you were talking about that, I felt like I was in a group and, I could hear, like, if you're in that environment and I've never really had my ears hurt.
Oh, it would be, my ears would be hurting.
Yeah, because we recognize that, like I said, because words are so powerful and we've done it and we've been there and we've been the people that have gossiped or talked about people. I don't feel good talking about people at all. It stirs something really negative inside of me, makes me ill inside. I just don't like it. And part of it is because, I don't know what that person is dealing with or facing. And I know what I have faced in my life. And I know that people have judged me for sure. But nobody knew what I was going through,
Right.
and I recognize that. So
Absolutely.
I know that those words can be very hurtful. But I think of gossiping and I've been around people talking about other people and I want to leave because I'm like, I can't hear people talk about other people because we don't know their circumstances.
Right.
We don't know why they are the way they are. We have not walked in their shoes. And so what gives us the right to pass that judgment? Those words, the negativity that comes from those conversations is for me, it's toxic. And I can't deal with it. It really makes me feel uneasy and unwell, and I remove myself.
Right.
So I think it's important that you choose your environment. We're going to be put in those spaces either at work or, like, sometimes that's going to happen anyways, not by choice, but because you have to be there and something's happening. But I think for the most part, as adults, we can walk away from that. And if we're participating, we should think about the words that we're using about other people and why we're using them. And for a few reasons. Is that how you feel about yourself? Is judgment?
It's always a deeper reflection of how you feel about yourself. And right. I've been in environments outside of the gossip aspect of it. I've been in environments where all of a sudden when I'm saying my ears are hurting, I'm listening to the individuals around me. I'm like, guys, why are you speaking about yourself like that? It was like, and it's challenging because I know what it's like for me being in it, in that self-loathing kind of place where no matter what anybody said to me, I was not coming out of it.
Can I say something? That's holding space for someone, right? Let's talk about holding space.
Right.
So, I want to wrap my arms around somebody who feels that way, but I'm going to let them talk and I'm going to say as much as I can to encourage that individual in that moment, without judgment, because I know I've been there too, of course. And you can hear yourself in them because you've been there, right? You've walked your shoes. But that's what makes us compassionate and empathetic, right? Is that we can listen to those things because we know what it's like to be there. And it's okay. And we go through those things even now. Like, do I have perfect? If I sound like I have a perfect life, I apologize because I go through those things as well. More limited than I used to. But I have things that happen in my environment and I'm like, and there's the negative, and I'm like, nope. And I'll take a moment. We talked about this too. Things happen for shorter amounts of time where I used to hold on to things for months. Now I just hold on to them for a few minutes, right? So even the length of time that I sit in that negativity and that negative self-talk doesn't last long. And so when we're around people like that, I think we have to remember where we came from and remember to hold that space for those people because sometimes they have to let it out. But what can we say to that person? And this is what I'm saying. what can we say to that person in that moment with as limited words as possible, because listening is the best thing you can do in that moment. But when they are negative about themselves, there's got to be something that you can come up with to say to them. And I mean, obviously it's an individual case, because I don't know exactly, what that person is saying, but there's got to be something that you can say, and in that moment say, well, I hear you, but I want you to know that I think you're beautiful. And I wish you could see yourself through my eyes, or something along those lines that gives them some impact to see that somebody else sees them differently.
Right.
Maybe that can start them on a journey to seeing themselves that way.
And sometimes it takes that one person that just believes in you and sees you differently that actually helps to reshape the way that you move about. Like that's the starting point of you moving in a different direction for your life.
Yeah, I want to give you an example. I was listening to, it's amazing. Today I was in the car. I had a lot of errands to run, but I was in the car and I was listening to Joel Osteen, and he was talking, and it's amazing. It was about words. And I was like,
how fitting.
How fitting. I was like, oh my goodness, he must be like talking to me right now. But I really want to give this example. And he used to go to a gym, and this was his example. And he went to this gym, and there was a guy there, and he went to the gym every day, and this guy was there every day, and he would say to the guy something along these lines: is, hey, how are you doing today? And the guy would do this and bang his chest twice. And he did this for such a long time, and then eventually stopped going to the gym. Okay. So one day he was at the church, and this man comes back into the church, and he says, you look really familiar. And he says, yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, but we used to go to the same gym together. And I just want you to know that the only reason I went to the gym every day was to hear you ask me how I was doing, because no one ever asked me.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I get chills thinking about that.
How many people go through life and nobody asks them how they're doing?
Right. How do we know how we're impacting someone else? If we can remain positive in our words, like I honestly almost feel like crying. Think about that, and how impactful just asking him. He went to that gym every day because somebody asked him how he was doing. Like how many lives how many lives can we save or healing people that are in a bad state of affairs? What can we do to impact humankind? I mean, if we can use our words and be kind, it doesn't cost anything.
And Joel also has another story, Joel, on how when he first started out, when his father had passed away, he first started out, there was a lady at the church, an elder at the church, that used to say something positive to him, something like the great sermon or great this or whatever. And he said he would look out for her just to hear those words.
I've heard it.
When he didn't hear it, he was like, what? But he said by that point, like you talked about the affirmations, she was the human affirmation for him. And certainly I'm not suggesting for anybody to rely on external acceptance and approval in order to feel enough. No. It just, it helps, and it assists you in moving in the direction of where you want to be in a healthier, everybody wants to be in a healthy, more accepting and loving place for themselves.
Yeah. But from my perspective, I was saying, what can we do to bring our impact to the world? What does it take? Words don't take anything. Like they literally don't. We all know how to use good words. We know how to be positive. It's hard sometimes, like I said.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Excuse me.
Sneeze on the truth.
I'm trying to hold it in, and I'm like, I can't.
David G used to say, sneeze on the truth. So that's why that when you sneeze on the truth. But I just feel like it doesn't hurt us. Like when you go through the drive-through and you're having a conversation, like I talked like Starbucks, or Tim Hortons, I'm talking to them. How are you doing today? I'm smiling because they're people. And I know that if I can do anything, and even if I did nothing, okay, if I did not impact them, that's okay. But maybe I did. And you would be amazed at how many people we actually impact in our lives every single day in a positive or negative way. But with our words, there's so much that we can bring to other people. So that was what perspective I was coming from, is, that we should try as people and, as humankind, to be kind and to use positive words. Also with ourselves, because that's where it starts, right? Like that's so important. If we can change that negative self-talk, that's where it starts.
Absolutely. And I think what you just said, you know, it starts with us and we put it out there. What we put out there comes back to us. We feel it. We're grateful for it. But how good do you feel as a person being able to contribute to something healthier for somebody else?
And that's key, because when you're giving it, you know, what are you getting back? Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I made a positive impact by asking how their day was and how they're doing and smiling, right? And I feel like it's positive, and that made me feel good. That makes me feel good, right? And I will continue to do that because it's one of the things that I have power over, and it doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely. Words are powerful. I just, I think to myself of when I started to understand how words carry tones and frequencies and how it reshapes the entire structure, cellularly, like everything within my body. It was important for me to be able to be responsible with the way I use words.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody out there, internally, externally, to really encourage everybody listening today to really take a step back, slow it down, and become more intentional with the way you use words. I wanted to bring this up really quickly. We have 4 minutes, and I wanted to bring up when I started to also learn about words and energy, the less words that we can use and the more simple we can use our words is the greater the frequency. So saying, a lot of times we'll say a sentence and then we'll add to the sentence. So we complicate that simplicity of the sentence. You know, I'm beautiful, but it doesn't mean that, and we start to go into this.
Never use but, not in an apology, not when you're talking.
Right.
I mean,
and
maybe
even
in a
if we're
story.
not using a but,
Yeah.
we start to add to that one sentence versus standing in the truth and just allowing our vibrations to own, to soak up, to feel the emotion of that statement. I'm beautiful, or I'm smart, or whatever it is.
I'm enough.
It is. Right. And even if you're looking to manifest something like that job is mine. That job is mine because, and we start to add in all these things, just keeping it simple and allowing, surrendering to the simplicity of the words, of the statement. And when I started to understand that, it's like a river, and the more words we put in it, it's like rocks going into the river. So the water doesn't flow quickly and freely. The energy is not flowing quickly and freely. Where if we just keep that statement simple, then we allow the energy to flow like the fast gushing river versus the slow river because all the rocks are in them.
I think I think I agree with that. You know, simplicity is great, especially when you're trying to change your own narrative, right? I totally agree with you there.
Because our body it needs time to absorb it.
Yeah.
To
and
feel
why you don't need all the other stuff. It's just very simple.
Right.
I am enough. I am beautiful.
Right.
I am smart. I'm kind. I'm loving, whatever it is. But just those small little phrases is what we need, right? To change, you know, our inner self-talk.
So one last nugget for our audience this evening to leave them with on how they can change the power of the way they use the words.
Well, we talked about how we use them with other people, but I want everybody to remember one thing. You are all beautiful. You are loved. You are amazing people. And don't forget it, you know? So if you need to hear it, you know, rewind. You are beautiful. You are loved. Rewind. No. But really, like, it's really important that you start to recognize who you are as a human and your power and how amazing you actually are, you know, as an individual. And we're all uniquely made and we're all perfectly imperfect. And remember that when the next time you have a negative self-talk, switch the narrative. And if you have to, sit in that thought, that beautiful, you know, thought or mantra you can create for yourself for even a minute, and see how that changes you in the next moment. Just try it. I would love to hear back from, you know, someone who does that, who hasn't done it before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Teresa's asking you guys to give us some feedback, to share with us your story on how you are changing the way you use your words based on this talk that we've had this evening. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this evening. Thank you for continuing to tune in to Tanya Talks. We really appreciate you. Teresa, thank you for joining us this evening. Congratulations and thank you. I'm completely honored to have you as a guest, as my co-host on Tanya Talks.
Thank you, Tanya. I love you. You are an amazing person, and I'm so happy to be here and to have these conversations with you. Honestly, I hope that we're impacting even one person. I really, truly do. And I appreciate being here just for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Remember to like and subscribe to Tanya Talks on Instagram and on Facebook. Also, if you are looking to take your life to the next level, please visit thetanyaexperience.com to get started. Everyone, Teresa will be joining us momentarily. Stay tuned for the announcement on another conversation that we will be embarking on. Have a good evening, everyone. Teresa, good night, and we'll talk soon.
Good night.